here with another Roman Reigns show. Of course, another Friday Night Smackdown. That, of course, we sold up over most of the build coming in with. It looks like Sami Zayn's going to be feuding with Big E for the remainable part of the month, involving the Intercontinental Championship. The Dolph Ziggler beating Montez Ford in a pretty decent selling match. The only weird part was the cup spot. Appropriating over with the blue solo cups in the middle of the ring when Montez Ford would start getting some momentum. And you see why I hate this group. They try so hard to build up some semblance of charisma. It comes up looking forcefully awkward. Y'all didn't see it when it came to Survivor Series. I mean, y'all didn't see it in most of their Champions Club BS corny party with fam, and then Montez Ford start awkwardly singing. Oh, dude, that was kind of trash. The match was fine though. Over Robert Roode coming from interference, tossing Angelo Dawkins into the steel steps. Ziggler picked up a super kick for the win. So it looks like Ziggler and Roode find momentum. We also had a contract signing involving Carmella and Sasha Banks. But didn't put this up earlier because it's like, do I really am that compelled over to the fact of a changed persona over Carmella? And she's supposed to be bringing this personification of her being, the hot blonde that gets overshadowed of her attraction from her overall wrestling. So they're literally making her just a weaker, less attractive Mandy Rose with less interesting ability in the ring and less buys because she can't really. Carmella's really not that interesting. In the little feud that she's having with Sasha Banks comes off cheap shotting her, and then later on they had an issue title match at the main event that was obviously gonna end in DQ, but it's either that or Jey Uso jobbing to Kevin Owens again because the last week ended in DQ, and you don't want a unappealing false finish for a title match 2 weeks into the guys actually going to wrestle at the pay-per-view. So that just comes off a little half-hearted. And even though they always do this to sell to the factor of more stakes come the next time they wrestle, why would they wrestle in the first place? Not only that, kind of the other stuff that kind of been pissing me off for most of the show came into the factor of the Riot Squad being this lower tier irrelevant tag team over in the women's division, involving after Bayley's promo, they come off jobbing Billie Kay. That's with this whole resume gimmick that she's a former tag team women's champion. She came from Raw. And that's technically it. Then the Riot Squad issued a tag team match if she can find a partner the next night on the next SmackDown, and then it's Natalya. That's a freaking jobber that just comes out with her obvious suction cup lips, unappealing lipo. She obviously wears full body suits now because obviously she's not in the age where she actually has a decent figure like she did back in the past. And she comes with a discus forearm. We had 17 different rest spots. Then some huge momentum over Liv Morgan until it came up to an awkward finisher into some face buster into an enziguri. No, to some kind of kick thing. It ends with the Riot Squad picking up the dub, and it's like, there's no point in going for this, because I'm not that compelled to see Billie Kay obviously lose every match. And they just have nothing for Natalya, because she keeps jobbing to nearly everybody except the time when she beat Bayley. They also had Bayley coming around trying to talk over, rooting for Carmella for the title match later in the night, going over who still leads the division. Then Bianca Belair comes around with receipts and stuff, calling her not that cute, her hair sucks, or stuff I've been saying since she's been WWE Smackdown Women's Champion for freaking 300 something days, man. So earlier on, she comes around just saying she's the strongest, the fastest, the smartest. Who is beating Natalia? Not you. And just came on walking away, and it just made Bailey to feel like an insufficient little baby that just, with a resume that's more established than her, she would think to like defend her pride by trying to square up with Bianca Belair, a woman that's made more of an impact, and she barely even spent that much time in the main roster. And they're just making Sasha just feud over with Carmella. It's just a bit weak, in my opinion. If you want to establish more of the women's division, you unify the two women's belts, and you revolt the tag and the women's title with some decent TV time. Earlier on, we had Sami Zayn complain about getting merch. Earlier on, after we transitioned awkwardly into like his promo, Big E comes around just saying you don't have to worry about what T-shirt you're getting. Then they had a stick figure of him getting drawn up. Like you expect somebody like he did like make an excuse over. He wants real Sami Zayn fans to have respect for their Intercontinental Champion. It's Sami Zayn. He's been better over the last couple of years because, of course, people have been like, Sami Zayn is falling off. He should be like how he was on NXT. This, even though that's like the best thing he got, like he's a neckbeard liberal, whiny cowardice champion, and he does a decent job trying to convey that he's sounds like an overprivileged heel. So over all this stuff, this is like the best part of Sami Zayn. He's literally doing the most cowardice stuff to win. He always wins off counter. He wants to take the easy way out. He doesn't mind if somebody does the job for him. The match was fine. He went one-on-one with Big E. Big E returns with the little powder clap pump up thing he does when he was called Biggie Langston. So that was nice to see. Then it ends up with Sami Zayn after hitting him with the hand with the cast. They came chasing around outside until they were rumbling about from under the ring. Then Sami kept beating him down to make sure he couldn't survive the 10 count. So Sami wins off count out. So it's underwhelming again. I don't know if they're still going to continue this come TLC. Because right now we don't have much of a card other than what's going on Raw. Sasha Banks and Carmella, and just the Roman Reigns TLC match. Speaking about the Roman Reigns TLC match, it was freaking cool. It was freaking cool because even though like I understand he spoke out of turn, so it makes sense that Roman Reigns would try to punish his brother. I mean his cousin. Sorry about that, folks. I'm dumb. Excuse me, but he'd punish Jey Uso out of speaking out of turn from the last week, where it ended up with Roman Reigns staying on top, battering both Kevin Owens and Jey Uso with his chair. And then he came around earlier after a vignette over the last few weeks of Roman Reigns staying on top and Kevin Owens trying to call him out. He comes around saying, "Are you good?" "Yeah, I'm good." "Great." And then he asked Jey Uso, "Are you good? Family's good?" "Of course. You're with me." And that's freaking awesome. That is leadership quality right there. That's a heel. And he comes around earlier on with Kevin Owens with his stackly forced promo. Like, it's as cringe as when Dean Ambrose was having Seth Rollins. I think this is before Hell in a Cell 2014. He had like a mannequin. It was supposed to symbolize what Dean Ambrose was going to do to Seth Rollins, and it looked mad corny. It looked super forced to like witness that you're not going to be that menacing enough to. I mean, I understand he's trying to symbolize that these things are going to be used as weapons, and he could have just been like, "You're disrespecting me. You're disrespecting your own family. And you don't put your family in my mouth, Kevin. Come TLC, I'm going to take the title." Like, it's not that hard. Yes, you can play about the stipulation and make it be relevant to the feud that you're having with your opponent. I get what Kevin Owens was doing, but it just looked really forced in my opinion. And it just ended up looking a bit awkward. Earlier on, Jey Uso came out of nowhere with a steel chair, assaulting him in the back until Kevin Owens hit him with a pop-up power bomb on the chair, on the table. Roman Reigns came out, walked about until Kevin Owens came looking for him backstage, came spearing him over the cage, talking all this stuff, and it all happened when Jim's more favorite stuff in this, but probably being like, it's the front of the table. You're the champion. You don't need this. It's when it's on your time. It's stuff like that that just makes it more entertaining. Like you don't see any other stars, even mid card champions, don't treat themselves like $1 million. Yes, you have Bobby Lashley in the Hurt Business, Sami Zayn. He's the cowardice heel champion, and that's practically it. I don't really care. Asuka, I like Asuka, but it just feels like it's a minute, like she's just part of like a minor goal with the Lana storyline crap. It's really terrible what they're doing with Asuka right now. Even with Lana, even though she's not that talented in the ring, I expected it better. And Sasha is a bit bland for me, and I'm not really liking the feud. Like she has some short ass sommelier coming out doing her bidding and obviously taking most of the punishment. She even took a backstabber. I think they called it the bank stabber earlier in the contract signing earlier in the show. But more into the Kevin Owens and Roman Reigns segment, it ended up with Kevin Owens getting assaulted over, getting slapped with a steel chair, and Roman Reigns came in over. Oh, this is Roman Reigns, and if we can talk some sense over to your husband, kids, make sure that Kevin Owens doesn't have to go into TLC with the tribal chief. He comes around taking it like he makes the money for Kevin Owens so he can work every day. And it just looks so cool. It just sounds so cool. And you don't usually hear this much praising when it comes to Roman Reigns at all. Like, we know he's a tremendous actor. He makes it sound like he is the only reason why Kevin Owens is getting as much success as he is. And it just sounds so amazing. So it ends with that. We also had freaking uh I think it was Chad Gable coming around now tagging with Otis. So you put him in the tag, even though he was already part of a tag team. We know Otis was the most over and had a character, but it just looked a bit, unnecessary to just slobber him up to just make Gable have some relevant TV time. Because if he was still on TV, he would just be jobbing out to like Corbin or something. It just looked a bit underwhelming in my opinion. I was speaking about Corbin. They just went over like some bland promo involving the Forgotten Sons. I'm still not understanding why Jackson Riker isn't on television, and it's just so bland. It looks like he's not doing his King Corbin gimmick anymore. That's basic enough. If they have at least some coalition faction over on SmackDown involving Corbin, I guess that'll be basic a bit better. But they had a training montage over Chad Gable. Otis looks a bit shorter than Gable. And they were training over blind spots. It looks like they're still making him. Now it looks like they're bringing back his Olympian like gimmick. And Gable comes around training, mainly Otis getting hurt. And it looks like he's taking lessons, even though like Otis beaten a former world champion and he won the Money in the Bank briefcase. Sure, he didn't cash it in because he never had the chance to, but still more successful than Gable has been over the past 4 years. Because winning the SmackDown tag titles are not that interesting anymore. So, now I think it was the Raw tag titles that he won. Look, then they wrestled in a tag team match involving Nakamura and Cesaro. And everything was gathering out some momentum. Otis was picking up some big moves. Of course, belly to belly, power slams, most of his heavy lifting maneuvers. Then it ended up with he was setting up for the Caterpillar. Gable tagged himself in. He took a Kinshasa for the win, for the loss. And then earlier on, there was a backstage segment involving Otis getting talked to by Gable and just saying, "You didn't need to be tagged in. You had the match won. It was all a lesson, and you failed, but that's okay." It just looked like this is gonna force off until like probably TLC. I don't see this having a long standing. Gable is not that appealing as Kurt Angle was, and I can say that is interesting enough that Vince probably thinks that the guy has a decent sense of humor and he's incredibly talented. I just think like he does the same four moves with no semblance of charisma. And he could have a decent match. He's just not that compelling to still keep on TV. Like put him on 205 Live or something. But it ends with the Nakamura and Cesaro picking up the win. And it looked like this stuff is gonna continue for the next. Well, thanks. We know how much WWE likes to cling on to stuff that's not really that funny. I give it 2 or 3 weeks. I mean months. And we end off with our main event. The WWE SmackDown Women's title will be defended. Sasha Banks versus Carmella. And it ends in DQ. It ends in DQ, obviously. It obviously ends in DQ. Especially when you're 2 weeks until your major pay-per-view just to sell more drama going into the women's match that I really didn't care about. It was just kicks, running knees over to the corner, a move over from the apron, Somalia getting involved when she was hooking up a bank statement, and then it ends up with Sasha keeping the crap out of Carmella, ending in a DQ finish. And then Carmella, instead of bonking her in the head with a glass that could possibly just be fake, she comes around just hitting her over to the sides and just telling you made a mockery out of me, and then we ended in an awkward silence. It just sounded really underwhelming. Obviously, for your women's title match, especially if you're not even going to have at least one quick title change, you make it end underwhelmingly so awkward with a DQ finish, and I don't like that. That doesn't sell over your match. It doesn't sell over your title match. It doesn't sell over your women's champion, especially for Carmella being repackaged. I don't mind the new entrance, but at least have some like significant like threat. Like what makes Carmella different from how she was before, over with R-Truth and all this stuff. Like you don't just force her over because she's been jumping the women's champion. Like let them have these back and forths and stuff. Like who else is chasing the women's championship? If you're still making like make Bayley and Bianca Belair like still contentious threats, but still feuding, but still aiming for the same goal. That's just my opinion on the matter. Underwhelming finish for an alright SmackDown, better than Raw in my opinion. If you guys want, I'm probably gonna review Final Resolution, but besides me, I'm a bit tuckered out. No pun intended. That's my last name. But other than that, uh, that's it coming from the DST show. If you want more, like, comment, subscribe. I'm getting my title now.